Well, this is a really fascinating one, isn't it? Because I mean, talk about legends from the past coming back again. I mean, this is set for July the 11th in Saudi Arabia. It's billed as a 4-round exhibition, but it is going to be scored. So yeah, it's for me. When I look back on it, I mean, I think Tyson, the enigma, the myth. I mean, look at the excitement that he generated then and still generates now with these little 30-second clips he's putting out on YouTube, and everybody gets right behind Tyson. For me, Holyfield has kind of the better body of work as a fighter. He had a lot of fights, all championship level. People forget about his great cruiserweight reign, the incredible fight with Dwight Mohammed Kwai to win the cruiserweight title, then moving up to heavyweight, fighting all these bigger guys, winning the title multiple times. But Tyson is just that enigma and generates that excitement. And we just can't seem to forget about Kid Dynamite. I think there's a picture behind me of him winning the title from Berbick, back in '86. So, yeah, he's always going to be box office. For me, though, Holyfield is the better fighter. I think, this is the rubber match. This is the third meeting between these two. And for me, Holyfield has won twice and he would win again, if all things being equal. But all things aren't equal. The big question mark, I think, is what Holyfield has left. Yes, we've got to ask that question of Tyson as well, but really it's the question very sharp in those short clips. And I think we've got to remember the last time we saw these guys out, it was Tyson was 15 years ago against Kevin McBride and he looked terrible. Holyfield was 11 years ago against Brian Nielsen and he looked quite good, but that was the last time we saw them out. But Tyson is a fighter that thrives when he's in love with boxing, and he seems to have got the love back. I mean, he looked terribly out of condition against McBride, and in his last few fights, he didn't look interested. Even he said that the latter part of his career was really just about the money, whereas Holyfield always had that passion and has retained that passion. But when Tyson is in love with boxing, he's formidable. So the question mark for me is who's got the most left? And I think it's probably going to be a fairly worthwhile exhibition. I'm going to go, though, on the grounds that he's won the last two fights, on the grounds that he's got Tyson's number, I am going to go for Holyfield. And on the grounds that he's just such an incredible competitor as well.
Hey, John, so what do you say to this? Tyson's record is slightly better than Holyfield's, 50 wins, 6 losses, where Holyfield had 44 wins and 10 losses. Tyson is slightly younger, born in 1966. His birthday's on the 30th of June, which makes him 54 tomorrow. So happy birthday, Mike. Whereas Holyfield was born in 1962. He's 57 and he'll be 58 in October. Tyson also has a slightly better KO ratio at 76%, Holyfield 51%. And there's one bookmaker in Vegas who has Tyson as the favourite superbook. So what do you say to that?
I think looking at those stats, those KO ratios and stuff, you've got to look at who they fought. And I think Holyfield has the better body of work with the more prestigious names on his record. A lot of those KOs from Mike were early in his career when he was just knocking guys out left, right and centre. But, some of those guys weren't the top guys. He hasn't got that many Hall of Famers on his record and none that he's actually beaten. So, but I think the real tale in that record is Holyfield's, 447 pro rounds. Hard rounds, a lot of hard rounds. I mean, I mentioned earlier that fight with Dwight Mohammed Kwai that people forget about, but also, those fights with Bo, and the fights with Tyson as well. There's a lot of miles on the clock for Holyfield. That makes me think maybe he can't recapture that conditioning. But then Holyfield has always been in condition. He's a gym rat, whereas Mike has had all that time out, and we know he's got his marijuana farm. We know he likes smoking a blunt. Maybe that's done a bit of damage to his lungs as well. So, in terms of conditioning, what worries me about Holyfield is more the miles on the clock. Now, the age thing is very interesting, Peter. I mean, we do keep pushing this back. I mean, it was, 40 was ancient in boxing terms, going back 30, 40 years. But now, a lot of people campaign quite successfully in their early 40s. There is precedent for this, though. If we think back to Jack Johnson, who was, world heavyweight champion 1908 to 1915, he was boxing competitively up to the age of 60. He made his last appearance in 1938. Admittedly, of his last 9 fights, 7 were losses, so he was obviously on the slide then. But his actual last ring appearance was in 1945 when he was 67. And that was, he boxed 1 minute round, 3 1 minute round exhibition fights against, I think, Joe Janay, and he did that to raise money for the US Army bonds. So, he was still a popular draw then, and he was boxing exhibitions like these guys are now. And I think if they stick to their contemporaries, then, I think it'll be all right. But any talk that we hear about mixing with the younger guys should just be forgotten about. They do have, they've got to kind of take care of themselves in that respect. I mean, personally, I can say I still actively spar and I'm 50 in a few weeks' time. But about 5-6 years ago, I stopped sparring with the younger guys. I stopped sparring with the pros. you know, and I just stick to guys like me who've been around, maybe don't take it that seriously now. You know, we're just having a bit of fun. And I think that's who you've got to stick to. Don't go near the young guys.